I was sitting at the dinner table in the house I paid for. Not rented. Not inherited. Paid. Mortgage in my name. Taxes drawn from my account. Every board beneath our feet. Every plate on the table. Every bulb in the ceiling me. That's what made what happened next so much worse. This wasn't neutral ground. This wasn't a shared space. This was mine. I had built it. I had bled for it. Across from me sat Bree and Haley, Carol's daughters, my stepdaughters. 116, 118. Two mouths I had fed for 5 years. Two lives I had helped hold together when their father drifted in and out like a ghost with expensive shoes. I'd cooked dinner that night, rosemary chicken, oven-roasted potatoes, and a salad that went untouched. I cooked most nights. Carol worked late and the girls rarely offered. They showed up when the table was set and left their plates half full, like I was running a motel with no checkout policy. That night, something felt off before it even began. Bree's phone buzzed twice before she silenced it. Not out of respect, just boredom. Haley slouched in her chair, tapping a rhythm on her water glass. Carol was still upstairs getting changed from her shift, which meant I had them to myself. I made small talk. School, friends, the usual. Nothing stuck. The air felt thick. Not with anger, not yet, but with something worse. Expectation. As if they had already decided how this would go. Then Bree put her fork down. Carefully. Deliberately. Her voice was calm. We've decided. I looked up. You're nobody, she said. And Haley, without missing a beat, echoed it. We'll decide what we want. I didn't answer right away. My hands stayed still. My breath didn't hitch. I didn't ask what they meant or why they said it or what Carol would think. Because I already knew. This wasn't spontaneous. This was rehearsed. Practiced upstairs in whispered tones. Maybe even texted back and forth between rooms like a dare. The point wasn't the words. The point was unity, sisterhood forged in opposition. They didn't flinch. Didn't laugh. Didn't soften. I nodded once. All right, I said. Then I stood, took my plate to the sink. Untouched, like theirs. Rinsed it quietly and stepped outside. No scene. No slammed doors. No begging. Just the soft scrape of the door sliding shut behind me and the cool air of early spring brushing against my face. I walked out to the backyard. The patch of land I mowed every weekend. The deck I'd built with my own hands 2 summers ago while they scrolled TikTok indoors. The grass was still damp from yesterday's rain. The porch light hummed overhead. 3 calls. No threats. Just facts. First to the bank. Then to the car leasing company. Then to the school. Quiet confirmations. Automatic transfers paused. Accounts flagged for review. I said nothing dramatic, just the kind of words that people only understand the weight of a week later. I didn't go back inside right away. I stood there, staring at the faint outlines of the fence. The garden beds Haley had promised she'd help plant last year. The tools scattered in the corner from projects that no one thanked me for. The house behind me glowed with warm light, laughter faint through the kitchen windows. But not mine. I used to believe presence was enough. That showing up, day after day, carried meaning. That eventually, love could be earned through quiet acts. I used to tell myself that a steady hand would be seen. If not today, then someday. When I married Carol, the girls were 14 and 16. Bree was already suspicious of me. Sharp-eyed, always calculating. Haley followed her like a mirror. I didn't try to replace Joel. I told myself that a man who shows up every weekend with gifts and praise would fade once the lights went off and the real world needed answers. But I underestimated the power of blood. Joel lived 15 minutes away. Close enough to play father when it suited him. Close enough to throw gasoline on a fire and vanish before the smoke cleared. He bought them new phones the week after I said no to upgrades. He took them to concerts 2 days after I grounded Haley for missing a math final. They came back giddy, full of praise. Dad gets it, Bree once said, throwing the word dad around like a badge. I paid for their braces. He paid for their sneakers. I bought groceries. He bought backstage passes. He showed up loud. I stayed quiet. I thought that would count for something. Didn't. In the early years, I tried not to push. I didn't want to be another voice shouting orders. I just offered help. Fixed things. Paid for things. Waited for Carol to notice. She did at first. She thanked me, touched my shoulder when I repaired the dishwasher, kissed me softly when I filled Bree's college fund ahead of schedule. But over time, gratitude became expectation. "You're so good with them," she'd say. "You're so reliable." She meant it as praise, but it always sounded like a warning, like a request to keep being the man who absorbed every slight without complaint. The first time Bree missed curfew by 3 hours, I wanted to ground her. Carol said, "She's going through things." When Haley snapped at me over dinner, "Why do you care what I wear? You're not even my real dad." Carol said nothing, just picked up her wine glass and looked away. Each silence from her chipped a little deeper into me. Each silence from them carved deeper grooves. At first, it was passive. Eye rolls. Late nights. One-word answers. Then it turned active. Expensive orders charged to my account without permission. Missed classes. Lying about sleepovers that turned into parties. And every time I tried to enforce a boundary, I saw it in Carol's eyes, the hesitation. The quiet plea not to push too hard. "I just don't want to lose them," she whispered once, late at night, when I told her Bree had forged my signature on a school permission slip, but she never saw that she was losing me instead. Respect can't be begged for, can't be traded for silence. And it sure as hell can't be found in a house where truth is whatever Joel texts them after dinner. The girls grew bolder as they realized the pattern. No matter what they did, Carol would smooth it over. She'd soften the words, dilute the punishments, apologize to me later with tired eyes and kisses that felt like distractions. I became a silhouette in my own home, present but not part of the frame. That's why, when Bree and Haley said what they said, "You're nobody. We'll decide what we want," I didn't argue. There was no point. They weren't asking for a conversation. They were declaring a border, a line drawn in permanent ink. So I made my calls. I stepped into the storm before it came. And when I walked back inside an hour later, dinner was already cleared. Carol was upstairs. The girls were gone to their rooms. Music thumped faintly through the walls, as if nothing had changed. As if the man who paid for the lights, the food, the roof didn't exist. They had drawn their line. Now I was drawing mine. I didn't move right away. The night they said it, "You're nobody. We'll decide what we want." I sat in the garage for hours. The house buzzed behind me, a living thing, windows glowing, music bleeding under bedroom doors. Carol's footsteps above, pacing. She never came out, not to find me, not to ask how I was. Maybe she thought I was blowing off steam. Maybe she thought it was better to give me space. Or maybe she was hoping I'd come back and softened, ready to pretend again. I didn't. That garage had become my real room long ago. It was where I kept the tools I bought myself, the ones no one ever thanked me for using. It was where I stored the extra freezer, the one I stocked with meals they never touched, because Bree became vegan for 2 weeks and Haley was gluten-sensitive now. It was where I fixed things that only I noticed were broken. That night, I sat on the old bench by the water heater and stared at a spot on the floor for 42 minutes. I remember the time. My phone buzzed once, a news alert. Then again, a payment confirmation from the utility company. Auto-paid as always. That money came from me. Always me. But I didn't check it. I just sat there, in the smell of dust and motor oil, thinking about everything I had tried to build and how much of it was already ash. I hadn't tried to be their dad. That was my first mistake. I thought I was being respectful. Thought if I entered gently, they'd open the door. Bree was 16 when I married Carol. Haley was 14. I figured, stay consistent. Don't overstep. Just be reliable. I let Joel keep his title. Let him call himself Dad at birthdays and drop-off cards with $100 bills like that covered the rest. I thought, eventually they'll see who's really there. But that's the thing about ghosts. They haunt louder than the living. Joel knew how to time it. He'd drop by the day after I enforced rules. Bree grounded. Joel picks her up for a mental health day. Haley restricted from her phone. Joel sends her a brand new one and texts Carol about overstepping boundaries. He never called me directly, never said anything to my face. He operated in the margins through gifts and implication. And Carol let him. She'd roll her eyes, say, "He's trying," and leave it at that. No, I was the one trying. I was the one fixing Haley's door after she slammed it off the hinge. I was the one calling the school when Bree skipped classes. I was the one paying, always paying, for problems that weren't mine from kids who made sure I knew it. Still, I stayed silent. I told myself, it's not about credit. I repeated that lie like scripture. Just keep showing up. They'll figure it out. But there's a limit. And I hit mine the night Carol walked downstairs after the girls had gone to bed. She poured herself a glass of wine, leaned against the fridge, and asked, so casually, "Are you mad?" I looked at her, really looked, at the tired lines under her eyes, the shrug in her posture, the way she refused to say what they had said out loud. I asked, "Did you hear them?" She sipped. "They're teenagers, Michael. You can't take everything they say so personally." My stomach turned. "They said I'm nobody." She winced just slightly. "They don't mean it. They're just asserting independence. It's normal. Normal." I stared at her. "What would you do if they said that to Joel?" She hesitated. "Just a breath. Just enough." "That's different." I laughed. Not loud. Just air escaping disbelief. "Of course it is." That was the final straw. Not the girls. Not their words. But Carol's quiet agreement with them. Her soft betrayals. The thousand small ways she told me year after year that my role was useful but not essential. She had married a workhorse. A man who could pay the bills, fix the pipes, stay silent and smile through it. But when it came to defending me, when it came to planting a flag in the ground and saying, "He matters," she flinched. Every time. That's when the switch flipped. I didn't shout. I didn't slam doors. I didn't demand apologies. I just acted. The next morning, I got up before anyone else. The house was dark, quiet. My favorite time back when I believed the silence meant peace, not absence. I brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop. First stop, the joint credit card. Bree used it like it was hers. Uber rides, takeout, a weekend hotel with friends that she swore was educational. I removed her as an authorized user, froze the card, set alerts for any future attempts. Next, the car. Bree's college car. Leased under my name, insurance under my name, monthly payment from my bank. She called it her freedom. I called the company. Arranged a pickup. Lease terminated. Let Joel explain that one. Then, Haley's school program. She was in a private arts academy. Monthly fees, equipment costs, guest instructor payments, all billed directly to me. I emailed the bursar. Withdrawal effective immediately. Financial obligation revoked. I made it clear her legal guardian would need to approve any continuation. They'd figure it out when the letters arrived. And then the last call to my accountant. Bree's college fund had been loaded through a 529 plan I'd started the year I married Carol. Not required. Not expected. Just something I did because I believed in building futures. I asked what it would take to transfer it. He paused. "To who?" "To me," I said. "Back to me. Or to a niece. Anyone but her." He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I'll draft the forms." That afternoon, I went to work like nothing happened. Same route, same parking spot, same nod to the security guard. But something had changed. Not outside, inside. I felt clear for the first time in years. As if the fog had lifted and I could finally see what I'd been choking on. The belief that love without respect was enough. It wasn't. That night I came home late. Carol was on the couch. The girls were upstairs. She looked at me with tired eyes. "You okay?" I sat down, looked her dead in the face. "I'm done pretending." She blinked. "Pretending what?" "That this is a family." The silence that followed was deeper than any scream. She didn't ask what I meant. She knew. She just looked at me like a stranger had sat down in my skin. And maybe one had. That weekend the letters started arriving. one by one. The frozen card. The school notice. The car company's repo letter. Carol didn't speak to me for 2 days. Bree screamed. Haley cried. Joel showed up, of course he did. Furious. Indignant. Throwing words like abuse and punishment and emotional blackmail. I stayed calm. Quiet. I let him shout. Then I said 5 words that ended it all. You said I'm nobody, right? He faltered. I stepped closer. Then show them how it's done. He didn't answer. The next week, they moved in with him. It didn't take long. Within days of moving in with Joel, the fantasy started to crack. It always does. That's the difference between performance and presence. Joel could play the part, the cool dad, the savior, but he didn't know the lines past the opening act. At first, the girls posted selfies in his apartment like it was some prize. Pizza boxes on the counter. Fairy lights hung like they lived in a movie. Bree captioned one, "Freedom looks like this." Haley liked it with 3 red hearts. I saw it. Carol showed me, holding her phone with shaking hands like it was evidence in a trial. I didn't react. What was there to say? She asked, "Do you think they're safe?" I looked her in the eye. "You told me they're not my responsibility." She flinched, but she didn't argue. Joel had always been loud, flashy, generous when the cameras were on. But real life is lived in the in-between, and that's where he always disappeared. Within the first week, I got a call from Haley's school. "Mr. Matthews," the receptionist began. "We've tried reaching her father, but, of course they had." She explained that Haley hadn't shown up for 3 days, that instructors were concerned, that tuition for the current term had not yet been paid. I said flatly, "She doesn't live here anymore." There was a pause, then a soft, "I understand." The next day, I got a message from the leasing company. Bree's car, the one I had repossessed, had been reported missing. She'd taken it before they picked it up, drove it to Joel's apartment, parked it in his lot like it belonged there. They found it 2 blocks away, abandoned with 2 parking tickets on the dash. Joel called me that night. Drunk, maybe, his words slurred at the edges. "You're ruining them," he said. "You think this is some lesson? Some punishment?" I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a photo still stuck to the fridge. All 4 of us, a Christmas 2 years ago. Bree smiling. Haley holding Carol's hand. Me behind them, arms stretched around shoulders that never leaned back. "They said I was nobody," I replied. "Now they're with somebody else. Isn't that what they wanted?" He cursed and hung up. The next week, the cracks turned to collapse. Bree was caught shoplifting, nothing major, just cheap makeup from a pharmacy. Haley posted a photo at 2 a.m. from the back of a stranger's car, half-lidded and proud. When Carol confronted her, she said, "We're not your problem anymore." Joel stopped answering texts, then calls, then everything. That's the problem with being a ghost. When you're finally needed, there's no body to find. Carol tried to hide it, but I saw it in her face. The slow dread, the way she stared at her phone like it held a life raft. The way she paced at night, up and down the hall, pausing outside the girls' empty rooms. She didn't apologize. Not directly, but silence has weight, and hers was growing heavier by the day. 3 weeks later, a letter came from the school district, a formal request for a meeting. Bree's grades had collapsed. Haley's attendance was below the legal minimum. Joel had missed every call, every email, every warning. The envelope sat on the counter for a full day before Carol opened it. That night, she asked, quietly, "Will you come with me?" I didn't say yes, but I showed up. The meeting was held in a stale office that smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. The principal, 2 teachers, a school counselor. Joel arrived 15 minutes late, sunglasses still on, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Bree and Haley followed him in silence, shadows of the girls they had been. Carol sat beside me, hands clenched in her lap. Joel slouched in his chair. "We're concerned," the principal began. "There's been a lack of structure, a breakdown in accountability." Joel shrugged. "They're teenagers." The counselor leaned forward. "That's not enough anymore. They're spiraling." There was silence then. Not dramatic, just tired. And then Joel said it. I can't handle them. Just like that. He said it like a weather report. Like a fact so obvious it didn't need emotion. I watched Bree's face go blank. Haley looked at the floor. The principal looked at me. And that's when I spoke. I told them the rules were real. They chose otherwise. Carol whispered, Michael. I ignored her. I told them who I was. They told me I was nobody. So I stepped back. Now they see what nobody really looks like. No one said anything. Not then. After the meeting, in the parking lot, Bree lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. Haley stood behind her, arms wrapped around herself like armor. I walked past them, heading to my car. Haley called out. Her voice didn't have the edge it used to. Can we come home? I turned. Carol caught up, breath hitching. We can talk about it. But I raised a hand. I looked at Haley, then Bree. And I said, only if the rules are real this time. Bree's lips parted. What does that mean? I stepped closer. It means no more undoing. No more playing me against Joel. No more you're not my dad. If I feed you, clothe you, pay your bills, and protect you, I will be respected. Not tolerated. Not ignored. Respected. Haley nodded slowly. Bree didn't move. I looked at Carol. And it starts with you. She didn't answer. But she didn't walk away either. That night they came back. Not with bags. Not with apologies. Just with the quiet awareness that the walls of Joel's world had collapsed. I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate. I gave them each a printed copy of the house rules. I handed them their own chore schedules. I laid out expectations in plain language. And for the first time, they listened. Bree said nothing, but she nodded. Haley whispered, okay. And Carol, she just watched me with something that looked like guilt. Or gratitude. Maybe both. I didn't ask for hugs. I didn't ask for thanks. I just watched them clear the table after dinner. I watched Bree rinse the plates. I watched Haley dry them. And for the first time in years, the silence in the house wasn't a threat. It was a beginning. 3 months. That's how long it's been since the girls came back. Since the meeting. Since Joel folded. 3 months of silence that wasn't hostile, just cautious. 3 months of routines slowly forming like bones under skin. Bree wakes at 7 a.m. Now, doesn't slam her door anymore. Haley does her own laundry. Sometimes helps with dinner. They don't talk much. Not to me. Not yet. But they follow the rules. They meet curfews. They speak with restraint. Respect. Maybe. Or fear. I don't ask which. Carol's softer now. Or maybe just quieter. She doesn't defend them like before. Doesn't make excuses when they fall short. She's seen the edge too, the cliff they all stood on. She knows how close they came to losing everything. Or maybe she finally saw what I've been carrying all these years. I still pay the bills. I still cook most nights. I still take out the trash without being asked. But it feels different now, not because anything's changed in the doing, but because of what's been made clear. I won't be used again. You can't build a house on resentment and call it love. You can't trade presence for power or sacrifice for silence and expect the walls not to rot. I tried. For years. I let myself believe that if I just held my breath long enough, the family would settle around me like dust around furniture. But they didn't. They saw me as convenient, necessary maybe, but not essential, and certainly not equal. Even now, I wonder if that's changed, or if they're just scared of the consequences. Because love that only surfaces when the power goes off isn't love. It's dependence. And dependence is not the same as loyalty. A part of me keeps waiting for Carol to say it out loud, to admit what she allowed, what she participated in. She hasn't. Not really. She'll say thank you now and then in small ways. She'll brush her hand over my shoulder, or stand a little longer in the hallway before going to bed. She'll defend me when the girls push back. I hear it in the next room sometimes. Haley testing the line, Bree sharpening her tone, and Carol stopping it. Holding the wall that used to cave every time. I appreciate it. But I don't forget. Respect delayed is not respect. It's just survival. And that's what this house feels like now. Not a home, not a family, but a ceasefire. Everyone tiptoes. Everyone remembers. I don't raise my voice. I don't get involved in things that aren't mine. If Carol wants to handle the emotional side, she does. If the girls want guidance, they can ask. I've made myself a fixed point. No more bending, no more chasing. I do what I do. I protect the structure. They can fill in the rest or not. Because I've learned, giving everything doesn't make you anything. It just makes you empty. There's a photo still stuck to the fridge. A new one, not the old Christmas shot. This one was taken last week, Carol insisted. Haley smiled. Bree half smiled. I stood behind them, one hand resting on Carol's shoulder. It's the kind of picture that says, look, we're fine. But I see the space between us. The way Bree's arm doesn't touch mine. The way Haley leaned into her mother, not me. The way I stood too straight, too still. Like I wasn't sure what I was stepping into. We look like a family. But photos lie. The truth is, something cracked open that night at the table. The night they said it, you're nobody. It wasn't just a tantrum. It was a verdict. And you can't unsay a sentence like that. Not really. You can walk it back. You can paper it over. But the fracture is there. Underneath. Waiting. And me? I remember. Not out of bitterness. Not even out of pain. But because remembering is how I keep from falling for it again. I've learned how the mask slips. How love can look like obligation when the balance is off. I've learned that silence is its own kind of betrayal. That when your partner lets the world walk over you, she might as well be holding the door open. I've learned that being the provider, the one who always shows up, always pays, always fixes, turns you invisible over time. People stop seeing you as a person. They see you as a service, a system, a steady hum in the background, until you stop, and then they panic. That panic tells you everything. I think about Joel sometimes, about how easy he had it. No groceries to haul, no bills to juggle, just appearances, just charm. And they loved him for it, or thought they did. Because love without accountability isn't love, it's fantasy. And fantasy collapses the second reality demands something back. I was the one they hated because I stood still when the storm hit. Because I was the one who stayed, who said no, who asked for order. Not comfort, not fun. Order. It's never the fun parent who builds the structure. It's the one who gets blamed when the fun runs out. I don't want credit anymore. I don't want thanks. I just want peace. And that's what I have in my own way. The girls know now. I'm not a ghost. I'm not background. I'm not disposable. I am the line, the wall, the limit. They don't have to love me, but they will respect the ground they walk on. Because I built it. With my time. With my money. With the years of my life no one will give back. Do I regret it? No. That's the part no one expects. Because even in the hollow moments, even when they spat their contempt in my face, I was still myself. I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I didn't abandon. I stood up. And when the moment came, I stepped away. Not to punish. To preserve. To finally ask the one question they never thought I would. What happens when the man who gives everything gives nothing instead? They know now. They feel it in the quiet. In the absence of the old patterns. In the cold steel of rules that don't bend anymore. In the weight of choices they have to carry alone. And still I sit here in this house I paid for and ask the question again. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to pull the support when they spat in my face? Was I wrong to demand respect before affection? Was I wrong to hold my ground when the people I fed, clothed, protected, chose a ghost over a man? Or was I finally right? Was this the only way to survive? You tell me, if you were in my seat, across from the ones who called you nobody, would you have stayed? Would you have paid? Or would you have stood up, made your calls, and let silence finish what love could not? Tell me, because I already lived it, and the cost was everything.